Welcome to Gorillapreneur, the Art of Waging Small Business Warfare podcast, teaching Davids how to defeat Goliaths. Now here's your host, Mark Anthony Peterson.
Welcome back to the podcast for entrepreneurs, startups, and business mavericks. If you're not a maverick, you don't have to go home, but you got to get up out of this podcast. In this podcast, we teach entrepreneurs how to defeat the corporate giant. Just like in the story of David and Goliath, David defeated a much taller and stronger Goliath, not by fighting the giant in hand-to-hand combat, but by using technology, a slingshot. The slingshot allowed the smaller David to attack from a distance that minimized the advantages that Goliath had over the smaller David. My name is Mark Anthony Peterson. I'm a serial entrepreneur, futurist, and the managing executive at Serial Consulting, a leading small business strategy and technology consulting firm. I am also the author of the book Gorillapreneur, Small Business Strategy for Davids Wanting to Defeat Goliaths, which is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and iTunes. This podcast is brought to you by Serial Consulting. An idea can launch a business, a strategy can take it global. Guys, support the show. Like the show. Subscribe to the show, and please leave a comment. All those things help us. Do it in iTunes, do it in the Apple Podcast app, or do it on Podomatic. But just make sure, like Nike says, you just do it. Guys, today's show is a great show. We interview Mr. Edward Corona, founder of the Fintech Group, and he's going to tell you how you can raise money for your startup or your high-risk business. Yeah, things have gotten a lot easier since the Jobs Act, and his platform makes it easy for you, if you're at the point now where you're selling equity as a startup, to collect those funds. You're going to love this interview. Okay, Gorillapreneurs, we spent the last 2 years telling you how to build a business. We've talked about everything from outsourcing sales to how to build a cult brand on the marketing side. We've looked at ways for you to get rid of some of the tasks that eat up all of your executive capacity. Since you've learned how to build every aspect of your startup, you've probably gone out and contacted friends and family to raise money to get your business off the ground. If you're at that spot and you're now looking to raise the next level of capital to launch your business to the next level, this is the show for you. We're going to talk about the best way for you to raise capital and take your business to the next level in this show. This show is about the Fintech Group and how they're changing the game in fundraising and making it easy for you to get your money. Today we have with us Mr. Ed Corona, who is the founder and CEO, and we're pleased to have him on the show because he got started at the very beginning of what has become a revolution in fundraising for startups. Ed, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me today, Mark.
Please tell our audience before we jump in and talk about your business and everything that you're doing to help high-risk businesses and startups and small businesses. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure thing, Mark. I'll kind of give you a broad brush background of some of the experience that I had. I started out in the financial service business, that is, back in the 1990s. So I have a fairly extensive background working within that industry. I actually started out as a Series 7 registered rep in the 1990s, so I was dealing with a lot of those types of businesses and types of investors that were investing in IPOs and certain types of investments like that. And I've held several positions over the years working within that industry. But if you kind of fast forward things a little bit to 2008, that's when I actually made my foray into the fintech world and into the fintech industry. And what I was able to do at that time is I was able to design a payment processing platform that was mainly used to help businesses that were considered a high-risk business, or at least businesses that were considered high-risk or prohibited from a credit card processing perspective. And what that actually means is that they were unable or had a difficult time to accept credit cards as a form of payment because of the type of business that they were in. So we saw a opportunity there, and that's what we designed our platform for, was essentially to service those types of businesses. So in 2008, when we put it together, we started to introduce it to those types of businesses, and it worked out really well. It was a very good solution, and we still have those businesses that are still using that platform the way it is today. But when 2012 rolled around, that's when the Jobs Act came out, and that was written into law in 2012. So we really started to carve out a niche for ourselves with those types of businesses that were raising capital through the Jobs Act. The way that our platform was designed is it made it almost ideal the way that it was for them to accept investor funds and payments by using our platform and using our solution. We were able to make a couple of tweaks to it. One of the things that we did is we added an Invest Now button as opposed to the Pay Now button that we were using, and a Reserve Shares button that we were able to embed to the website of the offering. And it made it really easy for those businesses that were out there that were raising capital, whether it be through crowdfunding investors or accredited investors, depending on the type of offering that they had in place. It really gave them an easy way to accept those payments and accept those funds through the investors, and we were able to get the funds to them very quickly and efficiently.
So a lot changed in a very short period of time when it came to smaller or high-risk businesses, giving them more opportunities to access capital. And it sounds like the 2012 Jobs Act, the Jumpstart Our Business Startup Act, that really opened the door for small businesses to sell equity into their business, and they needed an efficient way to collect that money, and you stepped into that opportunity.
Yeah, that's correct, Mark, and it's an excellent way for businesses to raise capital, and it's still a very well used program today with the different types of regulations they have, whether it's a Reg A or a Reg D 506C or Reg crowdfunding, whatever the case may be. It's an excellent way for those businesses to have investors put money into their business and help them to get started. And with our platform, we almost fell into that type of business almost by accident, because when we put this platform together, the Jobs Act wasn't even out. So even though I had experience in that industry, that's not what we actually designed our platform for. But it became apparent that there was certainly a need there when the issuers of those offerings needed a way to accept investor funds, because that's not the easiest thing to put together, because like the other businesses that we were dealing with, they're considered not only a high-risk business through credit card companies, if they wanted to use that as a method of payment, they're actually considered prohibited.
So let's walk the audience through an example, say on the Reg A side, and tell them the barriers, like you just did with credit cards, as to why they needed a specialized platform and how you're unique from some of the other types of methods like ACH that are currently in the market. Because what I want the startups out there that are listening to understand is you're now past the friends and family. You're selling equity in your business. You've contacted a lawyer. You filed the papers with the SEC. You have a list of investors, and now they want to transfer the money to your business. There's some real barriers, regulatory barriers, that prevent you from accepting funds in a certain way. And then there are accepted methods that may delay the money from getting in your account when you need it the most. But you've solved some of those problems.
Yeah, exactly. And the Reg A is actually a good example, because with a Reg A type of investment, you're able to collect investments from from any type of investor, not just accredited investors. So with the Reg A, you're open to any investor that wants to invest into the company. You don't have to vet them to make sure that they meet the qualifications as an accredited investor. Anyone could actually invest in that company. So what we were able to do is we were able to streamline that process. The way that our platform is designed is, I spoke about it a little bit earlier, what we do is most of those investments come online. When someone finds their offering, they want to make an investment, we have an Invest Now button that they would click on. When the investor clicks on that button, what we do is we collect the information that we need to transfer those investor funds and to make sure that we authorize those funds. So the authorization process is pretty simple. They put in their information and they click Invest Now. What we do is we send them an email notification that they're authorizing XYZ Corporation to accept the funds that they want to make into that investment. What we do at that point on the issuer side of things is we first off verify that those funds are coming from a legitimate bank account. And that's pretty easy to do with the database that we have in place. We run the routing number, so we make sure that it's a legitimate bank account that those funds are coming from. After that, what we do is we have another verification process that helps us to determine if the funds are going to be available. And what we do is we run it through a separate database. We actually have two databases that we run it through simultaneously. And what that does is it gives us the activity and the records that were established on that account. And then we're going to issue a code that goes along with that particular payment or with that particular investment. Now, if we collected positive information and there's positive information on file for that account, it's streamlined. And what we'll do is we'll just transfer that money and we'll make the deposit into the issuer's bank account the following business day without any type of delay. On the other side, if we collect negative information and we find that there was negative information on that bank account, our API sends an email alert to the issuer. And on that alert, it has the code that we came up with. They would click on the code and it would take them to the reason why that negative information came up, and it would tell them what the negative information was. At that point, the issuer has the opportunity to either override that transaction, and if they do that, they're taking the risk that the funds may not clear, or they can just decline the transaction where it would stop at that point. Most of the investors will kind of try to find out what the reason was, and if it's a reason that they think that they can overcome, they'll contact the investor and see what the story is. Other than that, they're going to decline the account. But we give them the opportunity to do either one of those things. And then if they decide that they want to accept that investment, then that money goes forward too, and it's deposited into their business account the following business day. So it works very similar to an ACH type of platform. But the main difference between us and your traditional ACH is, first off, we're able to send that money into their business account the following business day. A traditional ACH can take anywhere between 3 to 5 days to complete that transaction. We're doing everything, we're verifying everything in real time and doing it the following business day. The other thing that we're able to do is we're going to give them a lot more options for the investor to make that payment. They can do it online. They can collect that information over the phone and enter it into our API. They can send them a text message with an invoice type of thing with the Pay Now button. They can email them the same type of invoice. They can make the payment that way. Or they can even write a check and take a picture of the paper check, and we'll process the image. And they're able to make the payment that way too. So we're giving them as many options as we can to accept those funds through our platform, which is different than an ACH type of solution. And nothing against ACH. We encourage any offering to accept as many payment options as you can. If you can get set up for ACH, fine. Accept payments that way. If you're doing wire transfers, this isn't meant to replace, our solution isn't meant to replace anything. It's just to give them an additional option. And with our solution in place, it makes it very easy and streamlined for them to accept the funds.
Now, there are a couple of terms that you threw out that I want to make sure the audience understands why the Jobs Act was so important to opening up the door to not only capital for the business, but for the everyday guy to be able to invest in companies that they traditionally would not have been able to invest in. And that term was accredited investors. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit more on what that means and why the Job Act made it so important to open up opportunities for those who aren't accredited and those that are?
Yeah, I mean, the Jobs Act offers opportunities for both accredited and non-accredited investors. So one of the regulations in one of the exemptions in the Jobs Act is the Reg A. The Reg A is an exemption that allows anyone to be able to invest in a company. So what it does is it gives your everyday investor the opportunity to invest in a company that they like and the opportunity to be a part of things. Now, an accredited investor, they still have accredited investors in some of the exemptions to the Jobs Act too, and that falls under the Reg D section or the Reg D exemption. If you have Reg D 506B, well, you can have an investment set up that too, but it only accepts accredited investors to make the investment there. So what the issuer has to do is they have to make sure that they're able to vet that investor to make sure that they do indeed meet the qualifications of an accredited investor. So there's an extra step involved there, and there's certainly an extra step involved in vetting and qualifying that investor. And there's plenty of opportunity there too. But with the Reg A, it's a win-win situation. Now, it takes a little bit longer, and it's a little bit more expensive to set up a Reg A offering. But when that is set up, you don't have to worry about, on the issuer side, you don't have to worry about vetting that investor because it's open to anyone in the United States. And it's a great opportunity for those investors to invest in companies and be part of that company and have shares in a company that can, in a lot of cases, be very successful.
And having a platform like yours is especially good when you have a Reg A type offering set up because of the regulatory support that you provide, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, and as far as regulatory support, I mean, there's AML and KYC compliance, which is anti-money laundering and know your customer compliance. We have to be compliant with that. And we're able to do that as long as the money is coming from a U.S. bank. So part of our platform is making sure that the money is coming from a U.S. bank, which we do pretty easily. And then we make sure that that money is deposited into a U.S. bank. So the issuer has to have a bank account and a tax ID number within the United States in order for our platform to work. So regulatory from that standpoint, from a compliance standpoint, we have that part covered.
Now, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about services that you provide to high-risk businesses that may not necessarily be issuing equity or shares, but you're helping them to collect the funds that are needed to grow their business. And that's on your merchant account side. Can we talk a little bit about that and maybe some examples of high-risk businesses that you can support?
An example of some of the businesses that get the most out of our platform and out of our solution are businesses that typically are sending out proposals or sending out invoices and need to accept the payments when they send those proposals or those invoices out. A credit repair company could be a pretty good example of that, where a credit repair company, they're considered a restricted business, in most cases a prohibited business from a credit card processing standpoint. So what they'll do is they'll be able to send out a proposal to the client that they're working with, and on that proposal we'll have our Invest Now embedded button, or actually it would be our Pay Now button when we're dealing with businesses like that. So they can send out an email to them with the proposal. The client just has to click on that Pay Now button, and we'll go through the same process that we use when we're approving transactions and processing transactions from the offerings that we deal with. So we go through the whole verification process, and we're able to deposit those funds the following day into the business's bank account. But it works out very well for them because it's a cost-effective way, and it's a way for them to accept money electronically. Attorneys are another good example of businesses that use our type of service. They're constantly sending out proposals and requesting payment that way. And the other types of businesses that we deal with are businesses that accept recurring payments. We have a recurring payment feature. So if it's a subscription-based business or a business model that relies on recurring payments, memberships, and things like that, we're able to set them up very easily on recurring billing, and they're able to collect that money every month automatically. So it works out really well for those types of businesses.
Now, one of the other areas that I was really excited about was the support that your platform can provide to cannabis entrepreneurs. That's been an area that's, one, extremely high risk and has had the threat of not being able to participate in the traditional banking system. You can support those types of businesses as well.
We can support payments, and we do support payments for those types of businesses. And there's a little workaround that they have to put in place. First of all, they have to establish a bank account. Now, most cannabis dispensaries and businesses like that, they're able to set up an operations type of an account. It's more of a consultancy type of account, so they can do their banking. But they're unable to have a secured method to accept payments electronically. I mean, credit cards just are not, they just can't accept credit cards as a method of payment because they're tied to the federal laws of the bank. So they're unable to do that. Our platform does work for those types of businesses. They are an acceptable business for us. So as long as they have a bank account set up, even if it's an operations type of an account or a corporate LLC that they put together to work with their dispensary, we can make the payments into that account. It's a little bit more work involved with that. I mean, this solution is mainly when you're taking payments either over the phone or by email or things like that, using our API that way. It's not really meant for face-to-face types of transactions where someone hands you a credit card and you're able to swipe it or you're able to dip the card and get an approval that way. There's a little bit more involved. They have to collect that information. What most cannabis companies are doing is they're collecting that information up front before the person comes to make their purchase. Once we have that information, it stores that information in the system. So when that person goes in to make a purchase, they can do it more streamlined and look it up that way, and they can do a cashless transaction. Works really well for for delivery services and that sort of thing because they're able to take the payment up front. I'm close by to Massachusetts, and Massachusetts just passed recreational cannabis. There's a couple of dispensaries that opened up close by to me, and the most difficult thing is the traffic that they were getting there. I mean, everyone was literally lined up around the corner to make their purchases. What they did is they were able to establish two types of lines: a virtual checkout line and a line for people that were already customers that were customers for their MMJ or medical marijuana patients. They will set the virtual line where they were able to collect that payment information so that things were done very quickly, and that it didn't all have to be cash because that's just not a good business model to use when everything is cash.
I like what you're doing there for those particular high-risk businesses. As long as they're able to set up a workflow where customer data is already on your platform, they could pre-order and pick up, or as you say, as part of a delivery service, accept the payment on the front end and still make that business model work. So it is exciting that these new entrepreneurs can use your platform in a way that serves the value of the customer, and then again maintains a very good audit trail for them on the back end.
Yeah, it works for that. Like I said, there's a little bit of extra work that's involved, but everyone's on the same playing field as far as that goes.
Right. Now, you mentioned attorneys, and I want to drill down into that a little bit more. In our previous conversation, you had hinted at a service that you have on the platform called the Simple Interest Payment Calculator that helps attorneys or dentist offices that are providing financing for their service really leverage your platform in a way that other payment options may not have.
Yeah, that's correct, Mark. That's actually a very unique feature that we put into place, and it was actually very well received and works particularly well in certain types of businesses. And what we were able to do is we were able to take our recurring billing feature, and we were able to add into that a simple interest calculator so that you're able to calculate a simple interest loan on our system. So the way that it works is that, let's say that someone, attorneys are a good example because, a lot of times those are unexpected expenses that come up when you need them and you may not have the funds on hand. Another good example are the dentist office. Cosmetic dentistry, implants and things of that nature, they can be very expensive and they're not covered by insurance. Insurance only covers a very small amount. And it's not unusual to spend over $10,000 on work that needs to be done in a dental office, with the majority of those funds coming out of pocket. So a lot of people just are not prepared to have those funds available for the treatment plan that was recommended to them and the treatment plan that they actually need at that time. So for a dentist, he's able to put a program together, and the thing that makes that makes it unique when you're using our type of platform is you're able to space out those payments to coincide with the patient's paycheck. So if they're getting paid every 2 weeks, you can calculate the loan for as long as you want to send that out. You can collect a down payment to cover your hard costs that are involved with that, and then just put out you can put together a payment plan, and you'll be able to collect those funds as the person is getting paid. And we do it automatically. So we can automatically go in on the dates that are set and take out those payments, and they're automatically deducted. They go through the same verification process as we always use, and those funds are deposited. So once it's set up, they're able to put it in place and just not have to worry about it. And what it does is it gives them a very good revenue stream that they're able to see, and they're collecting interest on those payments as well. So they're collecting more as time goes on for providing that type of service. So for those types of businesses where you're not really expecting to, it was kind of an emergency type of expense, they're able to handle those where it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I can see that. So when a customer may not have the credit rating to go and get loans from traditional sources, dental offices can offer up their own in-house financing options using your platform and collect the same sort of interest that would be collected if they went to a third party, and having the benefit of it being automated on whatever cycle that coincides with the individual's paycheck. That's a tremendous benefit for entrepreneurs like that.
Yeah, it works out really well for those types of businesses. And there are other lenders that are out there that provide those types of loans. There's finance companies like Care Credit, which provides loans for dental work, but they're very difficult to qualify for. One of the things about Care Credit is their typical interest rate is around 26.9%. Now, you can use that, and, if someone's declined with Care Credit, it's not really the interest rate that they're looking at that point, it's the payments, and if they're able to make the payments, well, the dentist is just taking the payments, from those patients that were declined through Care Credit, and he's financing them on his own. So a $10,000 treatment plan financed at that type of interest rate, you're going to find it hard to do better than getting that type of return on your funds. And because it's a dentist office, their hard cost or their cost to start that work is more labor than anything else. There's not a big cost factor of upfront money that they have to pay for lab work and things like that. So they're able to help their customer help their patient get the treatment plan that they need while making north of 26% on their money. That's not too bad.
That's terrific. That's terrific. It sounds like this platform would also be very beneficial to individuals in the real estate market, particularly those that are looking to convert properties that have been on the market as passive income. If they're looking to rent to own type options with their tenants, this could be a great platform for them to manage those payments.
Yeah, for seller financing, it works out really well because whether they're a real estate investor or they're a property owner, if they want to offer seller financing, it just automates the process. It makes a big difference when you can attach the payment and have it automatically deducted from an account, as opposed to relying on that person sending in the payment on a monthly basis or whatever it is. And you can get creative with it as well, because again, you don't have to do your traditional monthly types of payments. If the person can budget it easier through paying it every 2 weeks, well, you can set it up that way. And once it's set up, you don't have to worry about it. Our system does all of the work, and it's completely automated. So once that information is entered in, it makes things much easier. And there's the tracking too. I mean, everything is recorded that goes through our system, so they're able to access that at any given point, whether they need it for an audit or whatever purpose they need it for, the IRS, whatever the case may be.
That's terrific. That is terrific. So Gorillapreneurs, if your business is at the point where you're ready to start accepting and selling equity, or if you are the type of entrepreneur, be it real estate or a legal or dental entrepreneur, and you believe that you can get more out of your business by self-financing or seller financing, this is the platform that you got to take a good hard look at, because it gives you the flexibility of working with your clients in a way that makes the payments easier, makes it easy for you to receive funds, and like Ed said, provides you a trail that if you need it down the road for any sort of regulatory purpose, it's there for your use. Ed, is there anything else that I've missed in this conversation about your business?
I think we covered a lot of ground here today, Mark, and I think it's a good highlight some of the features that we're able to offer a lot of these businesses that we work with.
Well, perfect. Well, I've enjoyed our discussion, and I have learned a lot about what Fintech Group does and how you can help businesses, startups, small businesses get to the next level, because payments and dealing with payments is one of the biggest issues facing small businesses today. That ability to get the cash, the lifeblood of the business, in their hands faster is a true benefit to these entrepreneurs. So I absolutely appreciate you spending time with us on the call today. Can you please tell us how the audience can find you and find out more about the Fintech Group and the products that you offer?
Yeah, sure thing, Mark. They can start out on my website, which is fintechmerchantaccounts.com. There's a lot of information there about some of the things that we discussed today. I also have a blog there that is updated on a regular basis, and I also do quite extensive work on the LinkedIn platform as well. So we're a lot of posts that we're constantly updating there, and people can feel free to reach out to my profile on LinkedIn and get in touch with me that way as well.
Well, thank you again for being on Gorillapreneur, the Art of Waging Small Business Warfare podcast. And we look forward to watching your success and watching you help small businesses take on the giant.
It was my pleasure, Mark. Thanks
Absolutely.
for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corona, for being on the Gorillapreneur podcast. I really enjoyed the interview. Gorillapreneurs,
make sure you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at Gorillapreneur. And check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/Gorillapreneur. We're designing a new set of Gorillapreneur merchandise. Yes, hats and t-shirts. Be the first one in your accelerator or your co-working space to sport the new Gorillapreneur hat. Just become a Patreon and you will get that hat sent out to you. Gorillapreneurs. Scott Sullivan said it best in episode 7. Be a mace, sharpen those spikes, and remember, if you're not breaking something, your company might be the next thing that gets broken.
Thank you for listening to the Gorillapreneur, the Art of Waging Small Business Warfare podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, you may also enjoy the book Gorillapreneur, Small Business Strategy for Davids Wanting to Defeat Goliaths, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and iTunes. Follow Mark Peterson on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Gorillapreneur. Now I want to close with a quote from the great Chinese military strategist Sun Tzu. Victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first, then seek to win. Keep fighting, Gorillapreneurs.